Have you ever just stopped and wondered, could life even exist without the constant struggle? Without the fight to survive? It's a huge question, one that sits at the intersection of biology, physics, and even philosophy. And digging into it might just change the way you see it. Well, everything.
I mean, really think about it. A world with no predators, no competition, a place where just being isn't a constant battle. Is that just a nice little fantasy? Or could a world like that actually exist under the laws of our universe?
So the short answer is kinda. Yes, it's theoretically possible, but it would have to be a reality playing by a completely different rulebook than ours. And to even imagine what those peaceful worlds would look like, we first have to understand why our world is so defined by conflict. All right, so what are the rules of the game here on Earth? Why does nature seem, red in tooth and claw, as they say? Well, it all starts with a single fundamental law of physics. I absolutely love this phrasing, the tyranny of entropy. We usually just hear it called disorder, right? But tyranny, that's perfect. It's this constant, relentless force pushing everything towards chaos. And to stay organized, to literally stay alive, you have to consume energy. It's not a suggestion, it's a cosmic law. And this lays out the chain reaction perfectly. It's like dominoes. First, you've got a limited supply of stuff in the universe. Second, every living thing needs energy to fight that entropy we just talked about. So, if we both need the same resources to live, bam, third, we're in competition. And from there, it's a pretty short evolutionary hop for one organism to realize, hey, it's way easier to just steal that guy's energy than make my own. And there you go, the invention of predation.
And here's the real kicker. On Earth, this constant struggle, this Darwinian pressure cooker, is the very engine that drives evolution forward. It's what forces life to get creative, to adapt, to become more and more complex. But what if we could change those roles? Okay, so now that we've got the rules of our world down, let's have some fun and try to break them. We're going to dive into 4 pretty wild thought experiments about how life could potentially evolve in total peace. This is where we let our imaginations run wild. We're going to look at a universe with basically infinite resources, another where everything is its own personal power plant, one where the only rule is to cooperate, and a final truly bizarre world where life isn't even made of physical stuff. First up, let's imagine a world of pure, unadulterated abundance, a place where the number one reason for conflict, scarcity, is just completely off the table. The logic here is pretty straightforward. If you have unlimited energy and unlimited resources, why would you ever fight? There's no evolutionary advantage to being aggressive. But, and there's always a but, you run into a physics problem. Life tends to grow. And even with unlimited resources, exponential growth in a finite space means you eventually run out of room. That piece was never going to last. Okay, so the first idea had a fatal flaw. What if we try to solve the problem from the inside out? What if we could build a world where nobody even needs to eat anyone else? This is a really cool idea. Picture a world where every single life form is an autotroph, basically a plant. It makes its own food from light or heat. And maybe one species uses red light and another uses blue light, so they aren't even competing for the same energy. You've just solved predation. But you still have to compete for real estate, for a patch of sunlight, for water, for carbon. The conflict is way smaller, but it's not totally gone. Now this next idea, this one flips the entire script. What if the most fundamental drive in all of life wasn't to compete, but to cooperate? This is seriously mind-bending. Instead of fight or flight, the default instinct is fuse and collaborate. When two organisms meet, they just merge. They form a partnership. Over millions of years, you wouldn't have a collection of individuals. You'd have one single planet-wide superorganism. The very idea of one species destroying another just ceases to make sense, because everything is part of the same thing. For our final hypothesis, we have to toss out our most basic assumption of all, that life is made of carbon and water. So what if life was made of organized energy fields, or complex self-replicating crystal patterns, beings that feed directly on cosmic rays or gravitational fields? If you don't need to eat physical matter to live, the entire logic of predation and fighting over resources, it just evaporates. So we've imagined all these peaceful worlds, but this whole thought experiment uncovers a really deep and fascinating paradox about what life and creativity are really all about. And this is really the heart of it all. It's kind of a punch to the gut, isn't it? The very thing that causes so much pain and destruction, conflict, might just be the necessary ingredient for all the incredible, beautiful complexity we see around us. This ties into a brilliant concept called anti-fragility. It's the idea that some systems don't just survive stress, they need stress to get better. A muscle has to be torn a little to grow stronger. An immune system needs to be exposed to germs to learn. Life on Earth is the ultimate anti-fragile system, precisely because of all this conflict. And this table just lays out the trade-off in black and white. A world of peace is probably simple, slow-moving, maybe even stagnant. But our world, the world of conflict, yeah, it's chaotic, but it's also dynamic, complex, and unbelievably creative. I just love this metaphor. The constant arms race between predator and prey is evolution's pencil sharpener. It's the reason we have faster brains and better eyes and more intricate camouflage. All that pressure is what hones life into something remarkable. And all of this leaves us with a final massive question to chew on. If the price of eternal, absolute peace is a universe without innovation, without complexity, without that creative spark that only comes from struggle, is that a price we'd actually be willing to pay? Really makes you think.